Good evening, friend. It is 4:17 and I am about ready to get started on dinner. So if you were with me last week, I started a pantry challenge slash use up what I have coming out of the garden, use up what I have in my freezer challenge. If you've been here for any length of time, in the winter, I typically do a pantry challenge where I don't go shopping. January and February, it's a challenge that's hosted by Jessica from Three Rivers. And this last year, I had pneumonia right before it started, and I was in no place to take on a challenge. But many of you guys have said, why am I not doing a challenge when the produce is coming in from the garden? And I thought, let's do that this year since we didn't do one this summer. So the last time I went grocery shopping was over 2 weeks ago when I did a big Costco and grocery store shopping for making some big freezer meals for my family, plus most of the freezer meals we made with my mom, I sent off to a family member. So I have not gone grocery shopping. Josh did pick up a couple items for me at the grocery store this morning because they were requested, and I will show you what those are. But my goal is to shop my freezer, shop my refrigerator, and shop my garden. So let me show you what I harvested today that we're gonna use in this week's menu for dinner, and what I shopped my freezers, and I'll obviously show you what comes out of my fridge. But we harvested the first tomatoes and the first zucchinis out of the garden this year. I'm gonna make one of Josh and I's favorite meals. It's super simple, it's super random, and I'm gonna show you how to make that today using tomatoes from this year's garden, zucchini from this year's garden, and these are some frozen cherry tomatoes I pulled out of the freezer. I don't think this is gonna be quite enough tomatoes for what I need, so I grabbed some frozen tomatoes out of the freezer. I'm gonna show you everything here. I got 4 eggs from my chickens today. Did I mention we just got back from Montana? And this is the first cooking I have done in my own kitchen in over a week. We got home yesterday and we got takeout yesterday because I wasn't gonna do any cooking when we got back. I got all the laundry done today. It was a work day. We spent time in the garden today. And this is the first time I'm actually doing some cooking. I had pulled out yesterday some breakfast sandwiches and some chicken bacon ranch bakes. So we had those and breakfast sandwiches this morning and this afternoon for breakfast and lunch. But I have to say, I'm very excited to be back in the kitchen with you all and to be home. And now that the garden is producing, I'm really, really excited about all these delicious meals we're gonna be able to make. So I only have 6 eggs in my house right now. I have 2 in the fridge. I let the house sitter who was taking care of my chickens collect all the eggs while we were gone. And this is what I was able to collect today, which should be enough. Tomorrow, I'm gonna do a big baking day using a bunch of these blueberries. So this is the first harvest of blueberries, and these are so good. This bowl was probably up to here, and we have eaten them down, just snacking on them. They are so delicious. I pulled out the last of the frozen bell peppers from last year's garden. Sometime this week, I wanna make, using some chicken I pulled from the freezer, creamy chicken salsa verde enchiladas. So tomorrow when I do a big baking day for using up some of the zucchini, using up some of these blueberries, I'm also gonna make some homemade tortillas so that we can have enchiladas. And I see I forgot to grab a jar of salsa verde. I went downstairs like 3 times or 4 times and then realizing I forgot stuff, and I'm gonna go down there again, and that's okay. I have this 1 onion in my house. This is some onions that I have this plus 1 more. So I have 2 onions in my house and we're gonna use one of them or half of one today. I bought onions when we went to Costco, and this might get me to the grocery store before anything else because I have a hard time cooking without onions, and it's gonna be quite some time before the onions are coming in from my garden. Tonight, I'm gonna make some cauliflower rice for myself. When I make the creamy chicken enchiladas, I pulled out some frozen cream cheese from my freezer. I bought too much cream cheese at some point. We didn't go through it and I didn't want it to go to waste, so I threw it in the freezer. This is no longer good to eat on like a bagel, but if I mix it into a sauce, it'll be delicious. So I kind of want to get this out of my freezer. Now, I'm gonna tell you this menu, but it could change. This is my rough menu for the week. So creamy chicken salsa verde enchiladas. I also wanna make a meatloaf. So we've got some ground beef here that's thawing. And the reason I wanted to make meatloaf is I wanna use up some of this tomato jam. We have not been using this. It's almost like a ketchup. It's a very, very sweet tomato product. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure all it has in it is sugar, tomatoes, salt, maybe a little bit of vinegar. I don't know, but I thought this would be a great substitute for ketchup in meatloaf, and a good way to use it up because I've had this on my pantry shelf for way too long. And if I like it, then that is a great use for that. When we were in Montana, there were 6 kids under 3 years old, and we were having boxed mac and cheese a couple times for lunch, and it was so convenient. I thought it would be fun to see if I can find a homemade stovetop version where you cook everything. You don't have to have 2 separate pots, like a boiling water pot and a sauce pot. So I've looked up a couple recipes of a homemade, easy boxed mac substitute recipe, and I thought that that would be good with meatloaf because normally I would have potatoes with meatloaf, but my potatoes aren't ready to be harvested and I don't want to buy potatoes because I know I'm going to be inundated with potatoes soon. And I had these macaroni noodles, I have lots of cheese, so that's going to be a dinner. When I do our big baking day where we're going to use blueberries and zucchini, I thought it would be good to make up some granola. I have not had homemade granola in the house in a long time. Normally I put almonds in my granola. I don't have any almonds in my house, but I have pecans I pulled out of the freezer and cashews. So we're gonna make a delicious homemade granola. Granola in the summer is one of my favorite breakfasts. I like to put fresh blueberries. I like to put fresh peaches on my granola, and I love granola in the summer. So we're gonna make some of that up tomorrow when we do a big baking day. I harvested a ton of sugar snap peas, and I wanted to show you what I did. These are getting a little bit on the mature side. They're still super, super sweet, but I did peel the kind of fibrous bits off, and when I cut the ends off, I also peeled them so that they would be a little bit more tender. I wanted to show you that. I didn't do that last time I cooked them, but this will be sides and lunches. I'll probably end up cooking all of these. I have probably this much times 2 or 3 out in the garden still. So at some point this week, I'll cook all of these up, and it will be just a prepped veggie in the fridge. We might have this the night we have meatloaf, and then that can be leftovers that I will eat a bowl of that for breakfast. So good. I'll cook it the same way I cooked it last week that I showed you. This is just gonna go in my food recycler. And now I think we can get started on tonight's dinner. Oh, I wanted to show you what Josh bought for me at the grocery store because it was requested. And this is a challenge that I'm putting on myself, no one else in my family. So this item, oranges were requested. So Josh picked these up at the grocery store for me, and he bought 2 different kinds because he wasn't exactly sure which ones were wanted. So we have navel oranges and cuties, and you can see both of them have already been dug into. I also asked him while he was there, could you pick up sour cream for the night we have enchiladas? Obviously, I am not growing sour cream in my garden, and that's a perishable thing, so I had him pick up those. I don't really have any rules for this pantry challenge other than try to use what I have in my freezer, my refrigerator, and my garden before anything else. Now, I do get once a week a gallon of milk delivered, so I got that this last week. I figure I'll show you what's in my fridge. I found the carrots and the celery in my outside garage fridge. That was the only produce in my garage fridge. This is from when we made the chicken pot pie for the freezer meals. This is what we're gonna have for dinner tonight, so I'm gonna pull that out. I have some random cheeses. Oh, it looks like I have some cream cheese here I need to use up. We've got Parmesan cheese. This is provolone. I'm gonna use this in tonight's dinner, so I'm gonna pull that out. I did harvest more lettuce that I washed and prepped the same way as last time, so we can have that for lunches or sides or whatever. I have some limes and lemons, and some of them look like they might need to end up in the food recycler. This is my other onion. Normally I don't put my onions in my fridge, but I had put this in my fridge after getting home from my mom's house, so it's still in here. We still have 1 apple, some carrot sticks. I do have some store-bought granola still. I pulled out breakfast sandwiches for Josh. These are almost empty sour creams, an orange that wasn't finished, a little bit of yogurt, jam, milk, 2 eggs. Those are some peanut butter cups and some cheese. Plus, obviously, an entire thing of condiments. Now, we had milk delivered the day after we left out of town. So I actually have almost 2 gallons of milk in here. So tomorrow when we do our big baking day, my goal is to try to use up a bunch of that milk so that it doesn't go bad. And that's why I'm gonna be doing a big baking day tomorrow. So at this point, let's get started on tonight's dinner. So this is a random recipe that I made up. I think when I started gardening because I had a lot of tomatoes and zucchinis coming in from the garden, and it's now one of Josh and I's favorite dinners. I'm gonna get all of these groceries put away, but I kind of want to get some of tonight's dinner cooking on the stove before I worry about getting all that stuff put away. So I have a package of, these are the sweet pineapple sausages from Costco. I don't know how you say the name. I think it's, gosh, I'm not sure how you say the name. Adele sausages, but they're so good. And this is part of what makes this dinner delicious. And this is gonna come together really quickly. So if you buy this brand at the grocery store, they only come with 4. But if you buy it at Costco, each package comes with 5. And I thought I was gonna have to put these in the fridge before I left or in the freezer before I left for Montana, but these are still plenty within date, so I didn't worry about freezing them because I knew, hopefully, I didn't know, but I was hoping that the tomatoes and zucchini would be coming in from the garden when we got back. Okay, so I like to cube up this sausage. This sausage is fully cooked, so all we need to do is brown it, and I do like to get a nice, beautiful color on it. You could cut these into rounds, you could cut them into half moons, whatever shape you prefer, but I kind of prefer cubes for this recipe because I'm gonna cube up the zucchini and basically make the zucchini and the sausage the same shape. I'm gonna finish this olive oil. And I want the heat point of oil, but I would like the flavor of some butter, so I'm gonna get butter in there along with our sausage. Okay, I want a nice color on this sausage, so I'm going to let this sit for a minute while I chop up our zucchini. Now these zucchinis are a little bit on the big side, but I still think they will be good to eat. I've already washed all the produce, so I don't need to worry about washing it. And when I mean good to eat, of course they're good to eat, but not more in a, not just a shredded aspect. And I think the next thing I'm going to chop up, actually before I finish the zucchini, and I should have done it first, is my onion. And I'm only gonna use half of this onion because I only have 2 onions in my house. And I wanna use onion in my meatloaf later this week. But I'm gonna go ahead and chop the whole thing up because then it's already chopped up for when I make meatloaf later in the week. This is a Walla Walla sweet onion and it smells incredible. So we can see that we're starting to get some really good color on this sausage. I think it's definitely important not to skip the browning of the sausage step. I want to get these onions cooking, and the sausage will continue to brown as these onions cook a little bit. I'm not quite ready to put this zucchini in the pot yet, so that's gonna give me a couple minutes. I'm gonna start getting this stuff put away. The cauliflower rice I'm actually gonna cook tonight for dinner. And you may have noticed I only had about 3 dinners planned. I usually only cook, on average, about 3 dinners a week because usually that will get us through. And usually we eat out once a week. Not every week, but usually on Friday nights, we like to go out as a family. And so I only like to usually plan about 3 dinners. And that usually gets us lunch. So breakfast and lunch are kind of my 2 biggest meals I like to meal prep for or plan for. And then lunch is usually just what we had for dinner the night before. I love to cook, but I also enjoy the days that I don't have to cook because sometimes I have other things that need to be attended to and cooking has to take a back seat. So I like these produce bags. The first time I ever used these was when I got them as a gift from one of you. They are the Debbie Meyer's Miss Green bags. I reuse them, I wash them out, and they are perfect for garden produce. So that is basically 2 meals plus lunches prepped, ready to go. Plus I have probably 6 more bags worth of sugar snap peas in the garden. When I cook these, I probably will cook all of them up at one time just so that they're cooked and I can eat on them because they are that good. I got the oranges in the fridge. Cauliflower rice, oh my gosh. Why was this steaming? It must just be the moisture coming off the cutting board. I thought I just caught my cutting board on fire. I did not. I probably shouldn't put that on the stove anyway because it is wood and it could catch on fire. So I turned that down because I wanted to make sure the onions had time to get soft before the sausage got too brown. But it's looking pretty good now, so I just turned it up. I am going to get that zucchini in there in just a second. I just cooked cauliflower rice in the microwave. So I'm gonna get this in there for me. And then I've already cooked up a pot in the Instapot of rice for my family because the way we like to serve this dinner is over rice. Okay, this looks fantastic. You could absolutely make this same meal with any kind of protein. You could make it with ground beef, you could make it with andouille sausage, you could make it with chicken, but this is our favorite because it's kind of sweet and delicious. Now I'm gonna get all of these zucchini pieces in here. Now, normally I cook this with 100% fresh tomatoes. I've never cooked it with frozen tomatoes before, so this will be interesting to see how it goes. You know, I probably could have used diced tomatoes too, that I have jarred up and drained them. That might have been a better option as opposed to the frozen, but I already thawed the frozen, so I'm gonna use the frozen. And I have not seasoned this with salt or pepper or anything, so let's go ahead and do that now. And I'm gonna go ahead and just use my homemade seasoned salt, which I can link this recipe down below for you. It has all the things in it. So kind of a one and done thing there. And you could season this up however you want. I do think I'm gonna add some garlic to this. This is garlic from last year's garden and it's pretty mild, so I'm gonna put 2 of these tablespoons in there. Now that I am thinking about it, the diced tomatoes in a jar probably would have been the better substitution, but frozen will work. Now I did wash these already. I've got 1 teeny tiny little Paul Robeson tomato here. I'm gonna get this sliced up. You can use whatever kind of tomatoes you have on hand. And what this does is the tomatoes create quite a bit of juice, and so does the zucchini as it cooks, and it creates this really good sauce. So between the flavor of the sausage and the tomatoes, I need to sharpen my knife. It just creates this wonderful, flavorful sauce over rice, plus all the cheese we're gonna add to the top of it that you'll see. So good. Don't roll away. Don't roll away. I should get out 2 deli container lids to chop these, but I'm just going with it like this. This is a new tomato variety to me. This is called citrine orange, I think. Josh was munching on them earlier and he said they were fantastic. I love tomatoes, but I do not really like biting into a raw tomato plain. But once they're cooked or in a sandwich or something, I think they're delicious. And exciting news, Josh checked on the bees today and he said one of the hive, if you've seen both hives and we've talked about it and you've heard me talk about it, is very strong and robust. He said there's a potential we could get honey from that robust hive. He said the top, I think it's called a super, I'm not the beekeeper, Josh is almost completely full of honey, and he might need to be adding another box on top here shortly. Now I do have my oven not preheated, it is preheated to broil because I will be finishing this dish off in the oven. See, this is what I'm not exactly sure. Should I cut these or are they just gonna fall apart? I can cut them. Ooh, very juicy. I probably should have drained them first. Normally when I use these frozen cherry tomatoes like this, I make a roasted pasta sauce. I don't usually chop them up or anything. So this is new, but I have 2 more bags of cherry tomatoes from last year's garden in the freezer after I use up this one, and I really want to get those used before the tomatoes start coming in like crazy here shortly. They smell good. Okay. That looks like enough tomatoes to me. And I'm okay if the tomato juice gets in here as well, because that is part of the sauce that's gonna go over the rice. And I'm not gonna mix this in. I'm just gonna put this on the top like this I have right now. You can see there's a little bit of liquid here, and that's actually what I want. So that liquid's coming from the zucchini and the tomatoes, and that's gonna be delicious. Now this next part, you can use whatever you have on hand. I happen to have some provolone cheese. Josh and I love provolone cheese. This was some leftover provolone cheese that I got to make breakfast sandwiches, and this is a great application. I'm not gonna have to shred any cheese. It's gonna add a nice little funkiness to it. Sometimes I use a sharp cheddar, sometimes I use Parmesan. I really just use whatever kind of cheese I have on hand, and I top the whole thing with cheese. So the cheese works its way down into that sauce, and I'm gonna broil this. So I'm not actually mixing in the tomatoes. The tomatoes will get nice and warm in the broiler. Hopefully this doesn't seem super weird to you. It is so good. And this makes fantastic lunches. Josh was just saying on a live, because someone had asked, one of you asked, what is one of his favorite meals? And he did say this is one of his favorite meals, and I haven't made it since last summer. And he says he has really fond memories of taking this to work with him and reheating it for lunch. So my oven is preheated on broil, and I have it on high, but my oven rack is at the bottom, so I'm gonna get this moved up. So that is one thing with this meal, is you do want to use a pan that is stove safe and oven safe. You're gonna get it in the oven under broil, and dinner is almost done. This is a pot of rice I started earlier. My cauliflower rice is almost done, and that didn't take very long at all to cook. Hopefully this is enough eggs for my baking projects tomorrow. My chickens might lay, I could get up to 2 eggs probably tomorrow, maybe 3. And then I'm gonna get these in the fridge for tomorrow. I think we are officially at that point in the growing season where produce is gonna start piling up on my counter, and I couldn't be happier for it. Normally I have a basket it's sitting in, but that basket's downstairs, so I'll grab that in a little bit. And that looks perfect. You can see, just grabbing some pot holders over here. It is bubbly and brown. We have a wonderful sauce. I use a sticky rice that I like to make, so the sticky rice really absorbs that delicious sauce. Even though it's not super thick, the sauce, it goes perfect with the sticky rice. When I make this recipe, I really try hard not to overcook the zucchini, so it still has some texture to it. That's why this recipe can be done in a matter of just a few minutes. So here it is. I'm gonna go ahead and get Josh's plated up for him so you can see how we would plate this up. My cauliflower rice is still in the microwave. You can see this is a really beautiful, sticky rice. He is so excited for this dinner when I told him what was for dinner, which always makes me happy. So a bowl of rice, as much or as little as you want. And then I usually like to take a spoon and kind of cut through the cheese a little bit, because usually you'll get a big cheese pull and it will take all the cheese from one spot. So here you can really see it's got a good amount of sauce or broth, whatever you want to call it, just from the tomatoes and the zucchini. So that's a really good flavor, cheesiness. Just a random recipe I came up with that is one of my family's favorites. It's a great way to use up the garden fresh zucchini and tomatoes. I will make this multiple times this summer, and it's one of my quick, easy go-to dinners on a night when I'm busy and I don't have a freezer meal pulled out. I will make this up. So I'm gonna call Josh down. I'm gonna get mine dished up. I will see you probably tomorrow for sure, because we're gonna be doing a big baking day, but that's gonna be separate. I'll show you what I make though. And I think tomorrow we are gonna have creamy salsa verde enchiladas, or maybe we'll have meatloaf. I don't know. I'll ask Josh what he wants, and that is what I'll make. So see you tomorrow. Well, friend, I was going to make chicken enchiladas or meatloaf for dinner tonight, but I just made 2 batches of zucchini pancakes with fresh flour, 16 tortillas that I was going to use for the enchiladas, 8 hamburger buns, just because I was making some cinnamon raisin bread, and I cut this recipe in half, and I made half into hamburger buns, half into this cinnamon raisin bread. And I also just made a nice jar of homemade almond granola, minus there's no almonds in it because I don't have any. So I used cashews and pecans, and you will see all this, or maybe you have already seen this, I'm not sure. But I am not tonight going to be making enchiladas or meatloaf. We still have what I made yesterday that we can have for dinner today. We have granola and those blueberries I picked yesterday we could have for dinner. If someone wants breakfast for dinner, they could have the zucchini pancakes. They could take those tortillas and turn it into a quesadilla, which I doubt is gonna happen because I'm not gonna do that. And I don't think Josh is gonna do that either. We could turn that into a peanut butter honey roll up, the tortilla. I'm not exactly sure. I just know I'm not gonna be doing any more cooking today because I did enough cooking. I know as soon as this cinnamon raisin bread is cooled, we're all gonna cut in, or I'm gonna cut into it, and we're all gonna have a slice of this toasted up with some butter. This is obviously way more prep than what I need for this week. So this is gonna stay out of the freezer. We're gonna eat this week. This is gonna go in the freezer. We are not having hamburgers this week, but I didn't want to cut the recipe in half or make 2 loaves of cinnamon raisin bread because I don't know if we're gonna like this. This is the first time I'm making this recipe. So I cut it before I added the cinnamon and raisins, and I did these because I have hamburgers prepped in the freezer. So one night when I pull out hamburger patties and make that on the grill, I'll have homemade hamburger buns. I only need half of these. I made a double batch of these for the enchiladas. The other half will go in the freezer for later. All of these are going in the freezer. Whenever I make pancakes, I freeze them all and they reheat perfectly from frozen. And I was able to use up a huge zucchini in these pancakes, and they have been loved. Tons of them have already been eaten, which is a good thing that makes me happy. And then it's been a long time since I've had granola, so I'm really excited to have granola in the house. Oh, after we were in the garden yesterday together, I went out and I harvested my first zinnia bouquet. And some of the stems were a little bit short. They'll get longer and longer as the season goes. And I just have this cute little zucchini zinnia arrangement. I also harvested and did a ton of maintenance on my snapdragon beds. If you watched the tour, they needed a little bit of maintenance. So I have that bouquet in here, and then I have one more bouquet over here. You can see this is my dirty apron. I've got to wash up my paper. These are not paper towels. These are placemats. I got to wash these, but I had enough snapdragons to do 2 bouquets. Good afternoon, friend. It is Wednesday, and I have less than 30 minutes between now and when I need to leave to go pick up an Azure order. This is an order that I planned a long time ago, so even though I'm in a pantry challenge, I have some fun things coming from Azure, and I will share with you what they are when I get them and what projects I want to do with them. But I figured I have a few minutes. Let's cook the chicken for tonight's dinner. So I was planning, like you know, to make chicken enchiladas yesterday, and I did too much other baking. That right there is the raisin cinnamon bread that we made. So good. So we've been eating well this morning. It's been a computer work day for Josh and I. We've just been kind of hanging out around the house. I did get to pruning all my tomatoes, which was awesome. Just grabbing out the different things I need. I'm hoping that today I will be able to not only make tonight's dinner, but I will be able to prep tomorrow's dinner as well. I have 2 things of shredded cheese in here. One of them is Swiss and one's cheddar. We finally ate down all of the zucchini recipe that I made between yesterday and today. So we definitely need some more food cooked. Josh and I each had a croissant breakfast sandwich. Oh my goodness, those were so good. I haven't made those in forever. And pancakes were eaten this morning. I made also yesterday some zucchini pancakes that have been a huge hit. We've been snacking on blueberries and oranges, and I want to get dinner going a little earlier today, and I'm going to see if I can go ahead and get the chicken cooked before I have to go to Azure. I'm going to get this preheating. It's a casual day today. I'm in sweats, slippers, and we're just going to have a casual cooking afternoon together. I think I should be able to get all of this cooked before I have to go. I pulled out cheese, the cream cheese that I want to use up from the freezer, the tortillas we made yesterday, the last of last year's garden peppers, and then I did go downstairs and grab some salsa verde because we're going to make a creamy salsa verde enchilada. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do, I have 2 things of chicken thighs here. I'm going to get both of these cooked up. I just got a text this morning from my sister that Saturday we are going out to one of our favorite Mexican restaurants for my brother-in-law's birthday. So I think that 2 meals that I have planned for the rest of the week is going to be all the cooking that I'm going to need to do, which will be nice. So if I get all the prep done today, I won't have to prep much. All I'll have to do is kind of cook it, except the mac and cheese. The mac and cheese, the stovetop, easy mac and cheese that I'm going to test out with you all. I will have to make that tomorrow, but I don't really want to have to make the meatloaf tomorrow, so I'm going to try to get to that today because I have a bunch of garden projects I want to get to tomorrow. When I was out in the garden this morning pruning the tomatoes, I was making a list of different projects I want to get done out there with you all, so I don't really want to have to make the meatloaf tomorrow. So with these chicken thighs, I am going and cutting off any excess pieces of fat, just because we don't enjoy eating that. If you like that flavor, you keep that on there for your family. These are mostly going to be stuffed with chicken, so I'm going to cook quite a bit of chicken. And if there's a little extra chicken that I don't need, that'll be okay. I'll just put that in the fridge, and we'll have that as meal prep. I was going to say one other thing, but I forgot. This is the last of the plain chicken thighs I have in my freezer. I do have a bunch of random cuts of chicken, I guess it's not random for everybody, but it's not chicken cuts that I usually cook. I have a ton of drumsticks in my freezer from last summer when I got some chickens from my parents' friends who raised the chickens for me, and I went and helped butcher them. I have 2 packages of drumsticks. I don't usually cook with drumsticks, so they're just sitting down there. So I'm going to come up with some fun recipes to cook those chicken drumsticks next week, I think, and chicken wings. I don't cook chicken wings very often, and I have, I think, 2 or 3 packages of chicken wings downstairs. So next week will be a little bit more, I will have to get a little bit more creative with using up some of those kind of more odd, random bits and bobs that I have in my freezer. I do have lots of marinated chickens, but this is the last of the chicken thighs that's just plain in my freezer. And I also have 1 package of chicken breast in my freezer. The rest of the chicken is either random cuts I'm not as accustomed to using, and or they're already marinated. While I was washing my hands, I didn't catch it for you, but there was 2 hummingbirds eating out of these green stalks. One of my favorite things about having my green stalks on my patio, it's kind of bright out there right now, is that it attracts the hummingbirds because I've planted a lot of flowers in them and I love watching the hummingbirds. I'm completely out of dish towels. It's the story of my life. I have about 25 of them and it's either feast or famine. My drawer is either full of dish towels or I have none. They're clean, I just have to go fold them. But what I'm gonna do with these chicken thighs is lay them out flat here. Some of these are huge and some of them are teeny tiny. And I'm gonna season these simply with seasoned salt. This is some homemade seasoned salt here. It has all the things: garlic powder, black pepper, salt, paprika. I can link this recipe down below for you if you're interested in it. I use garlic skate powder instead of garlic because that's what I had when I made it. And this is gonna have so much other flavor from the salsa verde and things like that, that I think a seasoned salt on here will be plenty of flavor. Oh, I think what I was gonna say earlier is that if you have a rotisserie chicken, if you have pre-cooked chicken in your fridge, if you have canned chicken, use whatever kind of chicken you want. Enchiladas can go a lot quicker if you already have pre-cooked chicken, but I don't have any pre-cooked chicken, so I get to go through the effort of cooking it. And let me turn another light on for you all. Let's go over here, put a little oil on here. I'm pretty sure this is hot enough at this point. See, look at the size difference between this one and this one. Now I can put seasoned salt on the other side. I am kind of making this recipe up based on what I have on hand. So I'm not exactly sure how it's going to turn out exactly, other than I'm pretty sure it's going to be delicious because it's all ingredients we like. I was looking for my jar opener, but I can't find it. This is salsa verde that we made last year together with tomatillos out of the garden. And this is some sour cream that I bought and did not use in time before it was gonna go out of date. And I didn't want it to go out of date, so I froze it. And when you freeze, did I say sour cream? Cream cheese. When you freeze cream cheese, it is totally fine to eat after, but the texture changes and it's not very good to spread on a bagel or something like that. But I think if I whisk it enough into this salsa verde, I'll get a nice, creamy, flavorful sauce. And it will be a good way to use this up. And I think one's gonna be plenty. Let me give that a taste. It's just kind of a light green, creamy sauce. Oh yeah, that's good. I'm gonna add the second one just because I kind of want to use it up. Hopefully this turns out good. So basically it's a total of, oh, you know what? That's gonna be 16 ounces of cream cheese. That's gonna be way too much cream cheese if I add a second one. I thought for some reason those were 4 ounces. So we'll just go with that. 1 pint of salsa verde and 8 ounces of cream cheese. Normally when I make creamy salsa verde enchiladas, I would use sour cream, not cream cheese. And I have some peppers from last year's garden that when those chicken thighs are done, I'll saute these peppers on there. I also need to, that's Swiss cheese. This is cheddar cheese. I'm gonna need more cheddar than that for tonight's dinner, and I'm gonna need cheddar for the macaroni and cheese. So I think what I'm gonna do while I'm waiting for that chicken to cook is I'm gonna go ahead and shred up cheese for tonight's dinner and tomorrow's dinner. I gotta go get more cheese out of the fridge. These are all the cheeses that I have left from when we did the cheese taste test. I think for the macaroni and cheese, I want to use orange cheese, but for the enchiladas, I'm gonna go ahead and use some white cheddar cheese. The rest of this cheese over here is cheese that I got from Azure. I kind of want to go through this cheese first. So I'm going to shred more cheese than I need for tonight's dinner, just so I have pre-shredded cheese in my house. And then I'm going to shred both of these for tomorrow night's dinner. I'm not sure if I'll need both of them, but it doesn't hurt to have a little extra shredded cheese around. If you were with me when I shredded all that cheese from the cheese taste test, that was all the cheese that I had already opened to actually do the taste test. That cheese is not gonna last very long in the fridge because it's already opened, but if it's still packaged, it'll last a long time in the fridge. And I still have quite a bit of that cheese shredded, frozen in my freezer, but it's shredded, frozen in my freezer, and I didn't think to take it out. So I'm just gonna shred this up, and I probably should use this stuff that's in the fridge before that anyway. And I'm just gonna use my box grater here and get this shredded up. I checked my chicken and I did turn some over because some were ready to be flipped already. Well, I definitely think I shredded more cheese than I needed, but that's okay because we will definitely go through it. I'm gonna use this cheese first because this was already pre-shredded in my fridge and I wanna use this up. This, I don't think I have any more of these. Normally I store my cheese in that size glass container in the fridge once I shred it. Oh good, I actually have 2 more. For some reason I thought I was out. So this is for tomorrow's dinner. Happy to have this done. I'm really excited to try this one pot macaroni and cheese and see if it is a hit with my family. I don't know if I told you earlier, but I'm not gonna boil the noodles separate from making the sauce. It's all gonna be done in one. I know I'll use all this cheese and then I'll put this container in the dishwasher and I'll go through some of this cheese and then I'll pop this one in the fridge. Okay, easy. I don't think I need to prep anything else for tonight's dinner. Those peppers are already chopped because I did that before I froze them, which is one of the nice things about having prepped peppers and onions in the freezer from the garden or from the grocery store. My stove is breaking. The stove part works, but the oven part, the motherboard's going out, and I can still use the stove even when I unplug this, so I have to unplug it. Stove still works. We need to order a new one of these motherboards. It's only the oven that doesn't work when it's unplugged, but I have 2 other ovens that work, so it hasn't been a high priority. I have to leave in about 5 minutes, so I'm hoping this chicken is gonna fully cook before I have to leave. If I need to leave before it's fully cooked, Josh is home, he can take this off the stove, I can head out, and then he can watch this until it needs to come out of off the stove. Oh, so what I was saying, in the frozen section of your grocery store, you can buy pre-diced frozen onions and peppers, and I have bought those a few times, but normally I have some frozen peppers and onions in my freezer that are pre-diced from the garden. But if I didn't, those are a really nice thing just to keep on hand for nights when you're really busy and you just don't want to chop an onion or chop a pepper. I do not think these are done yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and take the temperature of some of the small ones because some of these small ones might be done. Oh yeah, that's 175, 180, these are done. 174. I can link this down below for you. This is a thermo pin. I got this as a gift. I've wanted one for years because this is the brand that America's Test Kitchen recommends, and I absolutely love it. So the ones that are done, I'm gonna take off here. These big ones are not quite done, I don't think. We're getting close. We're about 10 degrees away from being done. I have to head out, so Josh is going to take over and take these off here once they are done. I will see you when I get back. I'm going to go ahead and finish up tonight's dinner. So Josh got all this chicken cooked up for me and my peppers cooked up. I'm going to grab a baking dish, and this is going to come together super, super fast. I'm going to just take this chicken and chop it up.
What would you like me to do?
If you could carry down that to the freezer, that would be fantastic.
These are all frozen?
And then the laundry detergent can go down because I don't think we need any of that at this particular moment. Okay. And then one of the Cheerios can stay up here and the other one can go downstairs. Okay. Thank you.
Do you have a preference on the freezer?
The freezer closest to the furnace is less empty, but it doesn't matter.
So use the other one, the small one.
Did I say less empty?
Yes.
It is more empty. If I seem a little tired today, I am a little tired today. I'm hoping I'm not coming down with a summer cold. So I feel like I have just enough energy to get dinner done tonight and prep tomorrow's dinner. And I want to take advantage of that because if I end up having to take tomorrow off, then at least I don't have to worry about what my family's going to eat. Just chopping up this chicken. If I see any bigger pieces of fat, I'm going to go ahead and just remove that because I know that my family doesn't love to bite into that, and I don't either. So I don't mind taking the time to remove any big pieces if needed. My other big bowl is right now in my refrigerator full of like mixing bowl blueberries. So I think what I'm going to do is put half of the sauce on the bottom of this baking dish. I'm going to have to get out another bowl, and then I'll mix my filling in here. So if there's a little bit of extra sauce in here, that's totally fine if it gets mixed up in with my chicken filling mixture. This is going to be a really simple chicken filling mixture. In my fridge, I have 2 little containers of just a little bit of leftover rice. So I'm going to get that in here because I might as well use that up. I don't know what else I would use it in. You could add beans to this. You could add corn. I'm just adding what I have on hand. I'm going to add my sauteed peppers, good amount of cheese. That's probably good because we're going to put cheese on top. Here's a stack of the tortillas that I made yesterday. And this made quite a bit of filling. So we're going to get quite a few enchiladas out of this. At this point, my family wanted to join me in the kitchen. So Josh is actually helping me do the dishes. I can't remember if the dishwasher needed to be unloaded, and he was loading it. He was doing all of the dishes by hand. So he was washing my griddle pan for me. I used 2 cutting boards, so he was washing one of the other cutting boards. And he was just doing kind of miscellaneous dishes and putting away the Azure haul. So I am going to show you the Azure haul, but that will be in a little bit. We have some really fun projects we're going to do together that I had planned to do. They're actually gifts that I am going to be, I needed an Azure haul so that I could get these items so that I could make what I want to make and then gift them. And I had ordered this order prior to my little pantry challenge that I started. So here you can see I am rolling up these enchiladas, and I realize, wow, I made way too much filling. Sometimes I have a hard time when I'm making this type of meal, like how much exactly I need. And so one cool thing is I was able to get 2 dinners out of this one little kitchen session, which was fantastic. And I'm really glad I doubled my tortilla recipe because I was still able to use these homemade tortillas If you were not with me when I made these tortillas, they are made with 100% fresh milled flour, and I made them the day before, and I did not heat them up prior to rolling. So this is how soft these tortillas are, just straight out of the Ziploc bag, and they are nice and pliable and absolutely delicious. They have this really rich, nutty flavor because we used that fresh milled flour. So what I did is I took my other half of my salsa verde sauce, I put that down on this foil pan. I figured this is just going to be an emergency meal when I need an emergency meal, which is going to be fantastic. I did go downstairs and grab one more jar of salsa verde, and I used up those 2 containers of sour cream I had in my fridge that just had a little bit of sour cream because I really wanted to get those used up as well. And so this top layer of salsa verde creamy mixture is actually salsa verde and sour cream. This is normally what I mix together when I make a creamy salsa verde chicken. So here you can see I'm going to go ahead and get this whisked up. I have 2 dinners worth of enchiladas here, and I can pull out the freezer meal one whenever I need a dinner and I don't want to have to cook. This is one way to fill your freezer with freezer meals if you don't have time to set aside an entire afternoon like I usually do, or morning. When I fill my freezer with meals, you can just double what you're making that night, and it doesn't use that many more dishes. It doesn't use that much more of your time. You're only messing up the kitchen that one time, and then you can just slowly build your freezer with meals. So if you're making like chicken pot pie or a baked pasta, whether that be lasagna or chicken tetrazzini or some sort of casserole, make 2 and freeze 1. I did not intend to do that on this day, but that was a benefit. I'm just going to wrap this second meal with 2 layers of foil. I'll mark what it is, and then I will wrap it in a layer of plastic wrap. So super, super easy. I want to make sure those ends don't get super crunchy, so I just put a little bit of the sauce on the ends, and then I'm going to go ahead and top this with cheese. I do have my oven preheated. I can't remember what I had it preheated to, probably 350, but you could do 350, 400, something like that. And I love a dinner like this because you can really make it however you want with whatever you have on hand. Sometimes I add beans, sometimes I add corn, sometimes I do beef, sometimes I do bean and cheese, and I do vegetarian, and it's just whatever I have on hand and whatever sounds good to me. So that's in the oven. I'm going to get this second meal wrapped up, marked what it is, and then into the freezer it goes. And I do end up making the meatloaf. So dinner's in the oven. I don't end up serving any sides with this dinner. We just end up having the enchiladas, and we did top it with sour cream and hot sauce, but I didn't have any sides on this day. So now that the enchiladas are in the oven, we're going to get going on the meatloaf. I have garlic powder, onion powder, an egg, seasoned salt. I'm going to put the chopped onions we did a couple days before in here. We have some homemade breadcrumbs, and then I'm going to put some cheddar cheese in here. I make meatloaf a little different every time, but this was totally new to me doing it this way. I made a beef patty recipe that called for A1 sauce, and it was delicious. So I thought I would do that same thing with this meatloaf. And then I end up putting about a 1/4 cup of this, not ketchup, it's a ketchup substitute. It is called tomato jam in here, and it was so good. I will absolutely be able to find a lot of easy ways to use this up now that I found this delicious application. I mixed up my meatloaf in my bowl with 2 pounds, that mixture with 2 pounds of ground beef. I'm going to shape this, and then I'm going to make a little sauce to go on top. I was also thinking a good way I could use up this tomato jam is in some sweet and sour meatballs, so I might make those too, because that requires a lot of ketchup, and this tomato jam with the meatloaf was absolutely delicious, and so I think it would be really good with meatballs as well. So for the top, I'm going to make a little glaze. I have my tomato jam. I have some more A1 sauce. I'm out of Worcestershire sauce. That's why I'm using A1 sauce, and it turned out delicious. I like that little vinegaryness it gave it. I had some honey mustard. I would use Dijon, but I didn't have any open, so I just used what I had in my fridge. I'm gonna mix that together, put a lid on it, and that's gonna be our glaze for the following day. So we're well on our way for dinner to be prepped for tomorrow. So that goes in the fridge, and the meatloaf and the sauce is done. Well, I got distracted and we were just hanging out as a family and I forgot dinner was in the oven. Okay, perfect. I was a little bit panicked that maybe I burnt this, but I think it's gonna be okay. We started watching a video on oxalatos and so this got almost forgotten about, but it smells absolutely incredible. It's super bubbly. I'm gonna let this cool for about 10 minutes, dish it up, and dinner is served. So not only did I get this dinner done, Josh helped me get most of the dishes done, and I'm just gonna turn my oven off here. We were able to get 2 dinners done in the time it took me basically to get that one done. I made too much filling. Sometimes I do that, but I am totally okay with that because I have a freezer meal. So next time I want to have creamy chicken salsa verde enchiladas, I literally can pull it out of the freezer, put it straight in the oven, or I can let it thaw a little bit and then put it in the oven, and then I have this beautiful dinner done, and I don't have to do anything to have it done. And tomorrow's dinner is almost completely done, except I have to make the mac and cheese, and then I will fry up those sugar snap peas. So I'm really excited for tonight's dinner. Thank you for being here. I'll see you tomorrow. My goodness, my friend, am I grateful that I prepped this dinner the day before, because I could tell that this day that I ended up cooking this, I was definitely starting to come down with a summer cold. I still felt like I had enough energy to make this dinner up, but I was fighting something and then I end up having to succumb to it. And I basically end up on the couch / in my bed for about 3 days. And then I start feeling better. And at this point, I am now probably, I would say about 85–90% better, which is great. I definitely did take some time just to rest and heal, and now I'm feeling great. But I'm grateful that the day before I prepped most of this dinner so that basically what you're going to see what I ended up having to do. I put the glaze on the meatloaf. I'm using this meter thermometer Josh got me for a gift. This is the perfect thing to use this for. I've got it in there. Everything is going into the oven cold. It is best for meatloaf if you can let it come up a little bit to room temperature before you cook it, but I didn't do that, so I went ahead and just put it in the oven. Now here you can see that you can see the internal temperature. There's an app. You can see the internal temperature of what it's at, of the meat. You can see the target temperature you set it to, and you can see the temperature of my oven. I have my oven set at 350 and the inside of my oven is currently 320. The thing I love about this is that it tells you how much time is remaining, because you put in the app if you're cooking beef, and if it's ground beef or roast, you put in there if you're cooking chicken or lamb, and it gives you a countdown, which is my favorite part. So I know that there's about 18 minutes left on my timer at this point, which is about the perfect timing to get started on this stovetop mac and cheese. So I will link this written recipe down in the description box for you so you can have the exact measurements. I will go through the process with you and let you know what I end up putting in here. So we're gonna make the stovetop mac and cheese, and we're gonna make our sugar snap peas. I'm gonna make the sugar snap peas the exact same way I made them last time. If you were here last week, I'm gonna cook them in a cast iron with some butter and salt and pepper. So here I've got, in this pot, which we're gonna make the mac and cheese, I have butter, paprika, salt, and pepper, and then I'm gonna add 1 pound of elbow macaroni. I was thinking, if you were with me when I organized my pantry, I have some pastas that are half open that I really need to use, but because I'm trying to mimic the box mac and cheese, I went ahead and I used the elbow macaroni because I had it on hand and I want to see if this kind of rivals a box mac and cheese. So here I'm adding milk and water to our pasta, and we're going to cook our pasta in this milk and water mixture on the stove. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to cook the pasta. And now I'm getting going on the sugar snap peas. I forgot to add pepper. You were supposed to toast the pepper with the butter, but I forgot to do that. So I'm just gonna add that now. I was so grateful that I had some freezer meals in my freezer for when I was down for the count. We only ended up having to cook one of them because I was able to kind of eat off this meatloaf and mac and cheese, and we had some of the enchiladas. So we were eating really well because we also had those breakfast sandwiches that I was able to pull out of the freezer. But I did pull one freezer meal. If you were with me with my mom, we prepped some Philly cheesesteaks, and we were able to eat that one night when I could just pull some buns out. I pulled out the Philly cheesesteak. The Philly cheesesteak was already cooked, which was amazing. I'm probably going to do more of those types of freezer meals where everything is cooked and literally all you have to do is warm it up, because it was so easy and it just was a lifesaver on one night that we did need some more, meals, but we did not have the energy to cook, because I was not the only one in my family that came down with a sickness. But on this day, I had it together enough to cook this dinner. So we've got our sugar snap peas. I seasoned them with some garlic, salt, pepper. That butter you saw at the beginning, I charred them. Delicious, super easy. And I love this as meal prep in the fridge. We ate on these and I was grateful to have a veggie prepped in the fridge. My mac and cheese is now nice and tender. It's been boiling away. I can see that I have reached basically the internal temperature I want. So what I'm gonna do is, I thought that the glaze could use a little bit more kind of char to it. So I ended up putting it on broil. I probably should have put it on broil about 10 degrees before it was at the right temperature, but it ends up coming out perfect. This meatloaf was probably one of the best meatloafs I have ever had. I did not grow up eating meatloaf. I started making meatloaf as an adult, and Josh and I love it. I don't know if Josh grew up with meatloaf, but he loves it, and I'm always happy when I make it. It's a family favorite. So the noodles are done. They have absorbed the liquid. Now we're going to add our cheese. So this recipe called for half a block of cream cheese. So I added that half a block that was in my fridge that needed to be used up. I added a ton of the shredded cheese. I tasted it. And I did add a little bit more seasoned salt to it, and it was fantastic. So easy. We ate it as leftovers. It was a crowd pleaser, and I really like mac and cheese with meatloaf. Never have I ever had that combination, and it was fantastic. So here, I did probably broil this a little bit longer than it needed to. I let it rest for about 10 minutes, and then I plated it up. This was a delicious dinner. I was so grateful for it. And I was so grateful that I prepped most of it in advance. So friend, thank you for being here for Pantry Challenge Week 2. Let me add some videos here you can go enjoy between now and my next upload. I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. And I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.